There are countless eerie disappearances from national parks to forests and all over the world, many of which remain unsolved. A boy vanished during a Father's Day camping trip. 3 lighthouse keepers mysteriously vanish from their post. During a Christmas Eve fire, 5 children seemingly disappeared. A newlywed couple while on a boat trip vanished without a trace, and a college student set off on a hike only to never be seen again. Follow us as we dive into 5 of some of the creepiest true cases that still to this day remain unsolved. Many of these cases are linked to missing persons researcher David Paulide's work on Missing 411, which suggests patterns of unexplained disappearances in remote wilderness areas. Theories range from animal attacks to alien abductions, but in many cases we may never know the truth. So before we dive into these creepy disappearances, please hit the subscribe button so you can get notified for more of the stories and help our channel grow. The disappearance of 6-year-old Dennis Lloyd Martin on June 14, 1969 in Spence Field, a popular hiking and camping area in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, bordering North Carolina and Tennessee, remains one of the most puzzling missing persons cases in U.S. history. Despite one of the largest search efforts ever conducted in the park, no definitive trace of Dennis was ever found. The case has led to numerous theories, ranging from natural causes to abduction, and has been a subject of speculation for decades. Dennis Martin was 4 feet tall, 55 pounds, and wearing a red t-shirt, green shorts, and Oxford shoes at the time of his disappearance. Described as a quiet, shy child, familiar with outdoor activities. He was with members of his family, his father William Martin, his grandfather Clyde Martin, and his older brother Douglas Martin, on an annual Father's Day camping trip. The afternoon of June 14, 1969 was the last time anyone would ever see Dennis ever again. The Martin family was camping at Spence Field, a grassy area near the Appalachian Trail. Dennis and 3 other boys, his brother and 2 other children from another family, decided to play a prank on the adults by hiding in the bushes and then jumping out. The other boys hid together, but Dennis, wearing his bright red shirt, went in a different direction so he wouldn't be easily spotted. This was around 4:30 p.m. When the other boys jumped out to surprise the adults, Dennis did not reappear. His father, William Martin, immediately began searching, running nearly 2 miles down the trail calling Dennis's name. No response, no sounds, no sign of Dennis. The family quickly expanded their search, shouting and looking through the dense forest. Around 8:30 p.m. they notified park rangers, initiating a formal search. A storm hit the area that evening, dropping 2.5 inches of rain, which washed away tracks and scent trails. This was one of the largest search and rescue operations in National Park Service history. Over 1,400 searchers participated, including park rangers volunteers, the FBI Special Forces Green Berets, highly unusual for a missing child case. Bloodhounds were used but could not pick up a reliable scent. Helicopters and planes searched from above. The terrain was extremely rugged, full of dense foliage, steep cliffs, and deep ravines. Some of the key findings and reports were: a footprint, unconfirmed. A child-sized footprint was found near a stream, but searchers believed it may have belonged to a Boy Scout from a different group. No other physical evidence, no clothing, blood, or remains was ever found. A possible sighting by tourists about 5 miles from where Dennis was last sighted. On the evening of June 14th, a family near Cades Cove, 5 miles from Spence Field, reported hearing a scream and seeing a rough-looking man darting through the woods with something on his shoulder. This was not investigated at the time but has fueled abduction theories. Special Forces involvement. Unusual presence of Green Berets. The U.S. Army Special Forces, Green Berets, joined the search in an independent capacity. They did not coordinate with park rangers, leading to speculation about classified involvement. Some believe they were investigating something beyond a missing child case. Despite an extensive search, no trace of Dennis Martin was ever found. Theories about what happened. Maybe he got lost in the wilderness, most official theory. Dennis may have become disoriented and wandered too far. The heavy storm that night could have made it difficult for him to survive. He might have fallen into a ravine or crevice where his body was never found. Other possible theories: an animal attack. Some speculate that Dennis could have been taken by a predator, such as a black bear or a wildcat. However, no evidence, such as blood or torn clothing, was ever found. Abduction, stranger or wild man theory. The sighting of a rough-looking man carrying something through the woods led some to believe Dennis was kidnapped. Rumors of wild men or feral people living in the Smokies have circulated for years, suggesting he was taken by a hermit or recluse. No ransom or demands were ever made, making a traditional abduction unlikely. A government cover-up? The involvement of Green Berets has led to speculation that something more sinister was involved. Some theorists suggest the military was testing something secret in the park. Dennis may have encountered something the government wanted to keep quiet, such as a classified experiment or operation. No hard evidence supports this theory. Paranormal or cryptid theories. Some believe Dennis may have been taken by something unnatural, such as Bigfoot or an unknown creature, a supernatural force that erased his presence. This theory is based purely on speculation, but it persists in folklore and online discussions. The Martin family was devastated. William Martin spent years searching for answers. Officially, the case remains open but inactive. The National Park Service lists it as an unresolved disappearance. The case influenced future search and rescue tactics, leading to better coordination efforts in national parks. No remains, clothing, or definitive clues were ever found. The most likely explanation is that Dennis got lost and succumbed to exposure. However, the lack of evidence, strange sightings, and government involvement keep the mystery alive. The disappearance of Dennis Martin remains one of the most perplexing missing person cases in national park history. While logical explanations exist, theories of abduction, government involvement, or even cryptid creatures continue to spark debate. Until evidence is found, it will remain an unsolved mystery. The disappearance of the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers in December 1900 is one of Scotland's most enduring maritime mysteries. The case involves 3 lighthouse keepers, James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur, who vanished without a trace from their post on Eileen Moor, one of the remote Flannan Isles in the Outer Hebrides. Their disappearance has sparked numerous theories, ranging from natural disasters to supernatural events. The setting, the Flannan Isles, and the lighthouse. The Flannan Isles are a group of 7 small rocky islands about 20 miles west of the Isle of Lewis. They are known for their treacherous waters, unpredictable weather, and steep, jagged cliffs. The lighthouse on Eileen Moor was built in 1899 by the Northern Lighthouse Board, NLB, to aid ships navigating these dangerous waters. The lighthouse was manned by a rotating crew of 3 keepers, with a 4th keeper stationed on the mainland for rotation duty. In December 1900, the keepers were James Duckett, principal keeper, 43 years old, Thomas Marshall, second assistant, 40 years old, Donald MacArthur, occasional keeper, 28 years old. MacArthur was standing in for William Ross, who had fallen ill. The disappearance. On December 15, 1900, the steamer Arctur reported that the Flannan Isles lighthouse was dark, meaning it was not functioning. This was highly unusual, as lighthouse keepers were required to keep the light operational at all times. The first signs of trouble came when the relief ship Hesperus, commanded by Captain James Harvey, arrived at the island on December 26, 1900, over a week after the Arctur's report. On board was relief keeper Joseph Moore, who was shocked to find the lighthouse completely deserted. The door to the lighthouse unlocked, but signs of an orderly exit. Clocks inside stopped, suggesting the last recorded time of activity beds unmade, indicating the men had left suddenly. An overturned chair near the kitchen table. No trace of the 3 men anywhere. Moore and his crew conducted a search but found no bodies, no distress signals, and no clear evidence of what had happened. Clues in the official investigation. The Northern Lighthouse Board launched an official investigation, led by Robert Muirhead. Some important findings included log entries, December 12, 1900. December 12th. Marshall reportedly wrote about severe storms, the worst he had ever seen, even though no reported storms were in the area. December 13th. Duckett was very quiet and MacArthur was crying, which was unusual for a hardened lighthouse keeper. December 14th. The storm seemed to pass and the log noted, "God is over all." December 15th. The final entry was at 9 a.m. Missing gear. 2 sets of oilskins, heavy weather gear, were missing, but MacArthur's coat was still inside, meaning he may have gone outside without proper protection. Damage on the western landing. A crane and ropes were damaged, suggesting a storm or a massive wave had struck. The logs mention ropes missing, which were later found tangled on a rocky ledge far from their usual location. Theories about their fate. 1. Giant waves, most accepted theory. Many believe a freak wave or a series of rogue waves struck the western landing, sweeping the men into the sea. This theory is based on the lighthouse being positioned high above sea level, yet the landing zone showing clear storm damage. The keepers possibly trying to secure the ropes or supplies and getting caught in a sudden wave. MacArthur, seeing his colleagues in danger, may have rushed out without his coat, only to be swept away as well. 1. Violent storms and landslides. Some speculate that a sudden landslide, driven by torrential rains and high winds, might have buried the keepers. However, no remains or evidence of a landslide were found. 2. Murder or madness. Some believe MacArthur, known for his temper, may have killed the other two in a fit of rage and then died while attempting to flee, or by suicide. The log's mention of MacArthur crying supports the idea of mental distress. However, no blood or signs of a struggle were found. 3. Supernatural or paranormal explanations. Local folklore includes eerie tales of ghosts, sea monsters, and curses associated with the Flannan Isles. Some speculate that the men were taken by spirits, abducted by strange entities, or even vanished into another dimension. While purely speculative, such theories persist in folklore. 4. Foreign abduction or foul play. A less likely but intriguing theory suggests that a passing foreign vessel such as a German submarine, U-boat, might have abducted or killed the keepers. However, there is no historical evidence supporting this claim. Aftermath and legacy. The lighthouse remained operational but became fully automated in 1971, eliminating the need for permanent keepers. No further strange disappearances occurred. The Flannan Isles mystery remains one of Scotland's most chilling unsolved cases, inspiring books, movies, and even poems like Wilfred Wilson Gibson's Flannan Isle. Conclusion. While the rogue wave theory is the most scientifically accepted explanation, the lack of bodies and eerie details keep the mystery alive. The disappearance of the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers remains one of history's most fascinating maritime puzzles. The disappearance of the Sodder children on Christmas Eve, 1945, is one of the most bizarre and chilling mysteries in American history. A devastating house fire should have left clear evidence of their fates, but instead, the case became a web of strange clues, unexplained events, and possible conspiracies. Despite an official ruling that the 5 missing Sodder children died in the fire, their parents, and many others, believed they had actually been kidnapped and taken away, leading to decades of investigation and theories. The Sodders were an Italian-American family living in Fayetteville, West Virginia. The father, George Sodder, was a successful businessman, running a trucking company. The mother, Jenny Sodder, was a dedicated homemaker. They had 10 children in total. The missing Sodder children were Maurice 14, Martha 12, Louis 9, Jenny 8, Betty 5. The oldest 2 sons, John 23, and George Jr. 16, survived because they escaped the fire. The youngest daughter, Sylvia 2, was rescued by her mother. Events leading up to the fire, strange warnings and threats. George Sodder was outspoken against Mussolini and the fascist government in Italy. In the months before the fire, a series of odd incidents occurred. A mysterious visitor came to the house, warning George that his home would burn down and his children would be destroyed because of his anti-fascist views. A traveling salesman threatened him, saying, "Your house will go up in smoke, and your children will be destroyed." George refused to buy life insurance from the man. A strange car was spotted watching the Sodder home several times in the weeks before the fire. Christmas Eve, 1945. The fire breaks out. Around 9 p.m., the Sodders celebrated Christmas Eve. The 5 younger children asked to stay up late, playing with new toys. Jenny Sodder went to bed at 10 p.m., leaving the children awake. 12:30 a.m. The phone rang, waking Jenny. A woman's voice asked for someone who didn't live there, then laughed strangely before hanging up. Jenny noticed lights still on and doors unlocked, which was unusual. Fire discovered around 1 a.m. Jenny was awakened by a strange banging sound on the roof. Minutes later, smoke filled the house, and flames erupted near George's office. George, Jenny, and 4 of the children escaped, but 5 were still inside. Strange details during the fire. The phone line had been cut, preventing a call for help. The ladder, usually kept nearby, was missing. George's trucks wouldn't start despite working the day before. No screams or cries came from the children inside. By the time firefighters arrived, almost 7 hours later, the house was reduced to ashes. Investigation and bizarre discoveries. No bones found normally, human remains survive house fires, even at extreme temperatures. No bones, teeth, or remains of the 5 children were ever recovered. The fire had burned for only 45 minutes, not nearly long enough to destroy bones. The fire was not electrical. Fire officials initially said faulty wiring caused the fire. However, the house's Christmas lights were still on, even after the fire started. This suggested it wasn't an electrical fire, a strange sight nearby. A bus driver later reported seeing balls of fire being thrown onto the Sodder home. In 1949, a dug-up site near the home revealed a small, hard object, a pineapple bomb, a type of incendiary device. Witnesses saw the children after the fire. A woman at a diner in Charleston, West Virginia claimed she saw the 5 Sodder children with 2 men and 2 women of Italian descent the morning after the fire. A hotel worker in South Carolina claimed she saw 4 of the missing Sodder children with an unknown man. Other reports surfaced over the years of children resembling the missing Sodders in different states. Possible theories. Were the Sodder children kidnapped? The strange car watching the house, the threats, and the lack of remains suggest the fire was a cover-up for an abduction. Some believe the children were taken by an underground organization or the mafia, possibly as revenge for George's anti-fascist activism. Was arson to cover up a crime? The missing ladder, cut phone line, and malfunctioning trucks suggest sabotage. The pineapple bomb discovery raises the possibility that someone intentionally set fire to the home to stage the children's deaths. Did the Sodder children die in the fire? The official ruling was that the children perished, but this explanation has major holes. No remains were found. The fire wasn't hot enough to destroy bones. The family never heard screams or cries from the missing children. Was this a cover-up or conspiracy? Some speculate that local authorities knew more than they admitted. Fire Chief F.J. Morris claimed to have found a human heart in the ashes, but when examined, it turned out to be a beef liver planted in the debris. Later, developments and lingering mysteries. What about the strange photograph, 1967? In 1967, Jenny Sodder received a mysterious letter containing a photo of a young man who strongly resembled her missing son, Louis. The letter was postmarked from Kentucky, but there was no return address. The back of the photo read, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, Elil Boys, a 90,132 or 35. The Sodders hired a private investigator to follow the lead, but he vanished without a trace. George and Jenny Sodder spent the rest of their lives searching for answers. They put up a huge billboard with pictures of their children and a $5,000 reward. George died in 1969 without knowing the truth. Jenny wore black mourning clothes for the rest of her life until her death in 1989. There were still unanswered questions. Who was watching the Sodder home before the fire? Why was the fire's origin never clearly explained? Why were no remains found if the children died in the fire? What happened to the missing Sodder children? The case remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. Whether they perished in the fire or were kidnapped and hidden away, the truth of what happened on Christmas Eve 1945 may never be fully known. The disappearance of Bessie and Glen Hyde, 1928, Grand Canyon, Arizona. The mysterious case of Bessie and Glen Hyde is one of the Grand Canyon's most enduring and eerie unsolved disappearances. The newlyweds vanished during a daring honeymoon trip down the Colorado River, leaving behind only their fully stocked, undisturbed boat. What happened to them? Were they victims of an accident, foul play, or something even stranger? Who were Bessie and Glen Hyde? Glen Hyde, 29, was an experienced outdoorsman who had previously navigated rivers in Idaho. Bessie Haley Hyde, 22, was a city girl from West Virginia who had never been on such an extreme trip before. They had married just months earlier and set off on a honeymoon adventure through the treacherous rapids of the Grand Canyon. The goal: Glen wanted to set a new speed record for traveling the Colorado River in a homemade wooden scow, a flat-bottomed boat. If successful, Bessie would have been the first woman to raft the entire Grand Canyon. Timeline of events: October 1928, setting out, the Hydes departed from Green River, Utah in their 20-foot wooden scow. They faced dangerous rapids, but Glen was confident they could handle them. Bessie, however, kept a journal in which she expressed doubts and hinted at being afraid of the journey. November 16, 1928. The last known sighting. The Hydes reached Hermit Rapid, one of the most dangerous stretches of the river. They stopped to visit the Kolb Studio, a famous photography studio perched on the canyon rim, owned by Ellsworth and Emery Kolb. Emery Kolb took a photograph of the couple, which remains the last confirmed image of them alive. According to Kolb, Bessie seemed uneasy and reluctant to continue the trip, while Glen was determined to press on. November 18, 1928, a mysterious river camp. A Colorado River rafter later reported seeing an abandoned campsite that may have belonged to the Hydes. The boat was neatly tied up, but no sign of Bessie or Glen was found. December 1928. Search begins. When the Hydes failed to reach Needles, California, as planned, Glen's father initiated a search. The U.S. Geological Survey dispatched a plane to scout the canyon. On December 19, 1928, the Hyde's scow was found floating intact in the river, fully stocked with supplies. The life jackets were still on board, suggesting they weren't wearing them when they disappeared. Theories on what happened: an accidental drowning. The most straightforward explanation is that Bessie or Glen fell into the river and drowned. The Colorado River has strong rapids, and even experienced rafters have been killed navigating it. If one of them fell in, the other may have tried to save them and drowned as well. Counterpoint: if this happened, why was their boat found in perfect condition? If they lost control, it should have been damaged. Did Bessie kill Glen and fled? One of the most sensational theories is that Bessie murdered Glen and escaped. The couple reportedly had arguments, and Bessie seemed hesitant to continue the trip. Years later, in the 1970s, an elderly woman on a Grand Canyon rafting tour claimed she was Bessie Hyde and had killed Glen. However, she later denied making the claim, and no solid evidence linked her to the case. Were they murdered by a third party? Some believe the Hydes encountered someone along the river who killed them and staged the boat to look abandoned. The Grand Canyon was home to reclusive miners, prospectors, and hermits. Could one have attacked them? The Kolb brothers were briefly suspected because they were the last to see the Hydes alive, but no evidence supported this. Did they fake their disappearance? Some believe the Hydes deliberately vanished to start a new life. However, there is no record of them anywhere after 1928, and they had no known motive to disappear. The skeleton in the canyon, 1976 discovery. In 1976, a human skeleton with a bullet hole in the skull was found near the Grand Canyon. Some thought it was Glen Hyde, but forensic tests did not confirm a match. Lingering mysteries. Why was their boat found in perfect condition with all supplies intact? If they drowned, where are their bodies? Did Bessie really kill Glen and assume a new identity? Who was the skeleton found in 1976? The fate of Bessie and Glen Hyde remains one of the greatest mysteries of the Grand Canyon. The disappearance of Paula Welden, 1946, Bennington, Vermont, the vanishing that started a search and a legend. The case of Paula Jean Welden is one of the most famous unsolved disappearances in Vermont history. Her sudden vanishing in 1946 sparked one of the largest search efforts the state had ever seen, led to the creation of Vermont's state police, and became a key mystery within the Bennington Triangle, an area infamous for disappearances. To this day, no trace of Paula has ever been found, no clothing, no remains, no definitive clue about what happened to her. The theories range from foul play to an intentional disappearance, even to supernatural forces. Who was Paula Welden? Paula Jean Welden was an 18-year-old sophomore at Bennington College in Bennington, Vermont. She was a bright, artistic, and adventurous young woman with a deep love for hiking and the outdoors. Her father, Archie Welden, was a well-known industrial engineer. Despite a friendly personality, she was described as sometimes private and introspective. Her last known movements: December 1, 1946. Paula was last seen heading toward the Long Trail, a famous hiking path stretching from Vermont to Canada. 2:30 p.m. Paula left her dormitory after telling her roommate, Elizabeth Parker, that she was going for a hike. 3 p.m. She was seen near a gas station asking for directions to the Long Trail despite being familiar with the area. 3:50 p.m. Multiple witnesses saw her on the trail near Bickford Hollow. An elderly couple later said Paula walked past them and appeared happy and energetic. A man named Ernest Whitman, a lumberjack, also saw her and warned her about an incoming storm. After this sighting, Paula was never seen again. That night, temperatures dropped drastically. When Paula didn't return, her roommate assumed she had stayed with friends. The search for Paula initial search efforts, December 2, 1946. Paula's professors noticed she missed class and her friends grew worried. December 3, 1946. Bennington College officially reported her missing. Massive search operation. Hundreds of volunteers, police officers, National Guard members, and even the FBI scoured the Long Trail and surrounding forests. Planes, bloodhounds, and mounted patrols were used, but no scent or trace of Paula was found. The only clue? A possible footprint in the snow near the trail, which led nowhere. Strange developments. A waitress in Fall River, Massachusetts claimed she served Paula 2 days after her disappearance. She said the girl looked nervous and left quickly. This lead was never confirmed. Paula's father, Archie Welden, hired psychics to help locate her. Several claimed she had been murdered, but none provided usable information. No official state police force existed in Vermont at the time. Due to police inexperience, critical search time was lost. Her disappearance directly led to Vermont forming its state police force in 1947. Here are some theories about Paula's fate. Did she get lost or succumb to the elements? Some believe Paula wandered off trail, became lost, and died of exposure. But if this were the case, why was no body, clothing, or belongings ever found? Searches covered all likely areas, even after the snow melted in spring. Was she murdered on the trail? Some suspect Paula was attacked and killed. Ernest Whitman, the lumberjack who saw her last, reportedly bragged to friends that he knew where she was buried. When questioned, he changed his story multiple times but was never charged due to lack of evidence. Did she run away to start a new life? Some believe Paula intentionally disappeared to escape academic or personal pressures. However, she left all her belongings behind, including money and extra clothing. Her family insisted she had no reason to run away. Was she taken by a serial killer? In 1950, a local man in Connecticut claimed he killed Paula and buried her under a barn. However, the lead turned out to be false, and no evidence supported his confession. Some theorize she fell victim to an unknown serial killer, but no similar cases linked to her disappearance have been found. A victim of the Bennington Triangle, a place where suspected paranormal or supernatural forces occur. Paula's case is one of many vanishings in the Bennington Triangle, an area of mysterious disappearances, UFO sightings, and strange creatures. Some believe she was taken by something unexplainable, a hidden predator, a time slip, or even an unknown force. However, there's no scientific proof to support this. Lingering questions. Why was she asking for directions to the long trail if she knew the area? If she ran away, why leave behind all her possessions? Why was no physical evidence ever found? Paula Welden's disappearance remains one of the most baffling missing persons cases in U.S. history. Over 75 years later, the truth is still unknown. We would love to read some of your comments down below. Please follow along for more stories like these and don't forget to like and subscribe.